you can't just show up to a community when you're a candidate. You have to be there before. You have to be, you have to be genuine and you have to be authentic, because when you talk to people's issues, it can't be just things you read online or you might have, maybe heard of. You have to experience it firsthand, and you have to really talk to everyone and be a part of it.
How you doing, Sabrina?
Eric, let's finally meet you in person.
Thank you so much for stopping by today. So you were recently elected the youngest person to the Hallandale City Commission. Tell me a little bit about that experience and what obstacles and struggles you faced with running as a young person.
So I'm 21. I was elected last November as a city commissioner 5 minutes after I was nominated to be the vice mayor, and it took me by surprise. I was like, oh my gosh, do I vote for myself? What do I do? But then fast forward a few years before that, I had begun thinking about running for office because Hallandale Beach, it's a tiny little city, southern part of Broward County. People just see it as the entry between Aventura and Hollywood, but it's a really historical city, and it's where I was born and raised my entire life, where I always went to school, preschool, all the way to when I graduated high school. And it's where my parents came to find their place in this, in this country. And my mom moved to Hallandale when she was in college, trying to find a new place from Chicago, Illinois. And my dad moved to this country from the Philippines when he was a child, and from Jersey to Hollywood and Hallandale. And it was the place where my family, found its home from all over the world. And it was just such an important place, and it's the same story for a lot of people. If you go from the west side of the tracks, the city's kind of pretty segregated, as most of the county. There's a lot of generational families there too, whether they're Caribbean, Latinx, and so we feel a lot of pride and feel really proud to be from Hallandale. It didn't become Hallandale Beach till the 90s, so we just say, I'm from Hallandale. And the news that you would see in the local paper and on TV was never really reflective of a place, you want to feel really proud to be from. It was, this scandal, this corruption, this missing money, this police shooting of a black man. And it's I want to tell people, people feel wow, you're from Hallandale, but that's not what the story was. It was wow, you're from Hallandale, yikes. And so I was really upset by that reputation that our city had. And so I started I got involved with I've always been involved with the community, but the organizers, the political organizers, the local community folks who would go to a commission meeting and say, this isn't right, something has to be done. And I just, realized that the people up on the city commission were just regular folks. I thought, they're legislators, they know so much, they pass policies, they control $100 million budget, but really they were just everyday folks who didn't really know much about what was going on. And I was, in the middle of college, and I figured I'm studying political science. I do this in my everyday job, working with the state senator. These are things, this is something I could do, My age, I didn't really think of being a barrier to me, because I can study and I can know just as much as any of them, whether they're 2 or 3 times older than me on the city commission. And that's the fact on my dais right now. My colleagues are either 2 or 3 times older than me. Sometimes I have to, push for it a little bit more, because I'm younger, because, they can't figure out how to say my last name or something ridiculous. So I just saw a need for change in my community, and I decided to pursue it, despite, how time consuming and what a toll it would be on, your mental and physical health and everything you else have going on in your life. Because it's not just you that's running for office, it's, everyone, your friends, your family definitely gets involved. Sometimes you see that it gets nasty, and unfortunately they're going to be subject to it too, so you have to have them on your team. And I'm really lucky to have a family that was able to support me, and friends who, saw it as their campaign too.
What policies are you working on right now that are affecting the next generation of leaders?
So that's some of there's some legislators who are specifically focused on policy or budget or, you know, just being loud on things to get the community to know what's going on. Or there's some people who, it's either policy, budgeting, or constituent services. You know, helping people out with their bills, the contracting, permits. But one of my favorite things is policy. I've never had something I've introduced fail. Sometimes it's passed unanimously, 4-1, 3-2. Most recently, earlier this summer, our commission has been on a break. They don't meet usually in July. You vote on your last budget thing in June, and then you come back in August. But in June, I passed a coral reef protection ordinance because we have endangered coral reefs not more than 500 feet from our beach, and they're dying every day. I'm sure you see the Great Barrier Reef is like 80% dead. And the coral reef's dying affects all the other things. The fish feed on it, the nutrients recycle in the water. And so keeping them alive is really important to the water ecosystem. So I passed a resolution and ordinance that bans the sale or use of plastic bags and styrofoam products on the beach, any coastal areas, also in any public places. It also bans landscaping at certain parts of the year, especially the wet season, because it feeds into the water in a way we don't want it to. And also bans the dumping of wastewater into any Hallandale water areas, canals, intercoastal, feeding into the ocean. Because a lot of boaters, you know, that have a bathroom on their boat, dump it anywhere they can. And, you know, wastewater is extremely toxic, has many diseases. And then that goes into the fish that we consume, and, you know, people are dying from that. So the environment was a really important one to me. And we just passed that. Later this month, in August, I'll be presenting an ordinance that bans the box on any job applications for the city. If you apply to work with Parks and Recreation and the Water Department, or if you would, any city contractor that receives money from the city. Because I was trying to figure out a way that I could make it as expansive as possible. But unfortunately, the state of Florida makes it super hard to do that. They preempt us on so many things, gun control, rent control. But I figured, you know what, if you're gonna get city funds for anything, then this is gonna apply to you as well. If you're getting our money, you're gonna follow our laws too. And so any job, they cannot ask if you've been convicted of a crime. And this one was really important to me too, because there's so many folks in my community, especially in the northwest part of Hallandale, which is mostly African American. There are a lot of folks out there who talk to me and tell me that they can't get a job, and people reoffend because they're not qualified, because they have a criminal background. And both of my parents, when I was a teenager, were convicted on criminal charges. They were in jail, and then years later, they took it to appeals court, and it was all overturned. So the judge had apologized, you know, for all of the trauma that they had gone through for years and the legal troubles, and it had a lot of effect on my brother and myself, and we kind of realized how broken the criminal justice system is. And my parents were lucky, you know, they had a judge who realized what happened was wrong, but not everybody is. There's so many people in jail for marijuana, for suspended license, for, you know, their kids not being able to go to school. And just the mass incarceration really got to me. And so, you know, if people are being convicted of these crimes and then they get out, and it's like, how do we expect them to return as citizens and be successful in their lives and help their families? We just can't if we're not going to hire them for quality jobs, you know, and not expect them to reoffend. So that's just two of the policies. And the third one I'm working on is a lot of cities, you know, they contract for construction of a park or any services. They put out a request for proposals, and they get back responses from companies who bid. Then a committee rates all the proposals based on these different point areas, and there's a huge gender and race disparity gap. I really saw it in the Broward County School Board and all the contracting they do to build new schools, to repair them, offer paper and some school supplies. 85% of all the contracts were going to white male contractors. And the study shows that there were a huge amount of minority and women-owned businesses that were just as qualified, but they weren't receiving the contracts. And, you know, we're spending millions of taxpayer dollars, these are your dollars, they're my dollars, and they're only going to white male companies. You know, that's not reinvesting in our communities, that's not building, you know, Black wealth and Latino wealth, and, you know, the pay gap between men and women. And so it was really important to me to kind of address that. And so I had some mentors in West Park and Miramar who had helped me realize there's specific policies that we can pass to make sure we're providing more incentives to minority and women-owned businesses. So we're going to be proposing an ordinance that changes up the language that allows for more points in a local preference disadvantaged business enterprise point system. And it's a federal designation, you know, for minority and women-owned businesses and veteran-owned businesses as well. And it's really important that we uplift them because they're, you know, the small businesses, the mom and pop stores, family-owned businesses that make up our communities. And they're the people who they reinvest these dollars. And it was just important to me. This is millions and millions of dollars, and it's the future. So those are just a few of the policies I'm working on. The last two, hopefully my colleagues vote for them. I'm sure it'll be successful. Usually I'm able to organize people to let them know how important it is to them as well, because I learned something from this group called Local Progress, and there's an inside-outside strategy. So, you know, before I was on the outside, I was coming to meetings, I was protesting, I was telling them, you know, don't pass this policy or fund this initiative, and now I'm on the inside. And so you have to bring the folks on the outside with you to the inside so they understand the process. Because once you get in office, you realize, okay, it's not as easy as I thought. You know, you have to get the votes, you have to have the budget, you have to have this approval, it has to go through this process, it has to get vetted by legal. And you learn so much that why, you know, bureaucracy happens and how long it takes for something to happen, you know, kind of why you were getting mad at the people before. Right. And so I bring the people I was with on the outside to the inside to help them figure out the process that I'm figuring out as well. And that's how we're able to pass things more in a involved way and you know, a participatory budget where people can be a part of the process and say, you know what, I think we're spending a lot of money on you know, police personnel. Right. Maybe we can reinvest some of that into building new sidewalks that we don't have in certain communities, into an affordable housing trust fund. So, you know, how dollars are invested and helping people understand the budget process is really important to me as well.
Thank you so much for being a strong community advocate. I mean, you're pretty active in your community, as I can see. Yeah. Also, what advice would you give to the next generation of leaders that want to run for office at a young age or get involved in public service? What would you tell them? So the most important thing I think about running for office is you can't just show up to a community when you're a candidate. You have to be there before. You have to be, you know, you have to be genuine and you have to be authentic, because when you talk to people's issues, it can't be just things you read online or you might have, you know, maybe heard of. You have to experience it firsthand, and you have to really talk to everyone and be a part of, you know, we say like the community, but if you're a part of the community, you know you are. Because I hear people say, you know, I want to run for office, maybe I'll move to the city and do it. But then it's not as personal, and it's not authentic. So people don't feel a connection to that. You know, they really felt connected to my story because I was born and raised in the city. I was a proud graduate of Hallandale High School, where a good majority of like the west side of the city is, you know, proud graduates of as well. And so we went through a lot of the same things. We would go and eat at the same places before and after school, and, you know, saw the condition our school was in, and why were we getting, you know, more funding to make it a better place, get rid of mold in our schools. And so I went through that firsthand, and I was able to connect with people and, you know, talk about the crime in certain parts of the city, the gun violence that is experienced, and people being scared for their kids to go out to some of our parks. Because I would go to those parks and, you know, hang out with my friends. So it was really personal. So make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Everyone wants to make a change, but if people aren't really calling for that change, or, you know, calling for you specifically to make it, maybe it's not
maybe it's for someone else and you should support that person. But also, finding a mentor in the community, or a local community activist, or a local elected official, and they can really bring you into the world of like politics and see if this is something you want to do.